Hello there. So I just finished the book The Bite, and from what I understand, this author had released it on Wattpad and split the first book into two parts. That's from what I understand. And I gotta say, I like how this book is. It's basically about werewolves, vampires, and witches. They introduce all that at the beginning. And again, from what I understand, is in the original series that she had released online, it wasn't like that. And she added a few things to the story, which honestly, when I started having complaints about it, the person who told me about the book explained it all to me, letting me know that that wasn't in the original take. So the things I have issue with apparently weren't in the book. So the story basically takes place on a girl who's basically was beaten almost to her death by the woman, by the man who claimed to love her. So she was in a domestic situation, and she escaped clean, free, and then she ends up getting bit by a werewolf, and then the whole book is her transitioning, changing into something else. And this book seems well written. This book flows, except for the first person narrative being throughout. Like it's all from the main girl's perspective. I find that difficult when I'm reading other characters because everyone has her voice, and for me, it just felt off because it was like everyone has her voice, every character has her voice, and it makes sense because it's her who's the main focus. But for me, reading it, it was like, this first person narrative is a little rough for me, but it was fine. In the end, it worked out. Because she basically gets away, she gets bitten by a wolf, and then she's taken care of by this older werewolf known as Levi, and his live-in vampire known as Derek. And for the most part, I enjoyed the story. There was one part, like there are little bits and pieces which feel like they're just tacked on. So not really tacked on because it feels like it works very well. Like she has to call the person who helped her escape, which happened to be the Yolanda, the one who would clean her rich boyfriend's apartment, and she basically grabbed her, took her out, and helped her get away. So Charlotte had got a burner phone. She's the main character, and called Yolanda and let her know the things that it gets around. I think it was chapter 16. It's around partway through the book, halfway in the book, where I really had an issue, because that entire chapter is like 10-12 pages, and literally, if you're a fan of anime or a fan of like sitcoms, everyone knows like the bottle episode, everyone knows a filler episode, everyone knows that those are just there to pad in it, to add more runtime, to add more screen time. And this chapter started to make everything that was an issue before stand out. So they have her call her ex, and it's just like one of the greatest things about the story was that she had gotten away from her boyfriend. She had escaped. She had tried multiple times before, because they had mentioned that she had tried multiple times before but would always come back, and she had cut the cord. She had gotten away, and then she grabs the burner phone and calls the ex. It made me angry. I got frustrated because I was reading the Charlotte as an intelligent character, as a smart, strong character. The second I got to that part, I literally read it like I was simple-minded, because I had to. That was the only way to stomach her actions. It aggravated me reading that and realizing that wasn't in the original version. It kind of aggravated me even more. And there was another bit that was added in. So they introduced like there's magic clothes that works for werewolves. Fine, whatever. I didn't mind that. That's apparently tacked on as well. But it made certain things that are in the world very unimportant. So there's this special clothes that you can wear as a werewolf now, which make it so you don't have to be naked when you form back to a human. And for some reason, what was in the book originally, the original version of the book, is they have like clothes littered around the woods for when they were for shifters. If they shift back at some random place, they have clothes littered around. That no longer serves a purpose. You either have one or the other. The fact that both are there, you realize that there's too much going on. There's just random bits and pieces here thrown in. It's someone put a little too much salt in the cuisine that they were making. That's how it felt. It was like, okay, now they're just adding too many seasonings. It's going too far. But also, there was a bit, because werewolves. They have excellent hearing, excellent sense of smell. And they even in the book, they're talking about how scent lingers, how she, at the very end of the book, is following Levi by his scent. She's tracking him by his scent. And they have a character, and this is also in the very center of the book. This is what got me questioning, because after she calls her boyfriend, was it after she calls her it's somewhere around there. So, no, after she calls Yolanda. It was like Yolanda, which did that halfway in the point, and it was like a pointless conversation with the Yolanda character who really didn't need to be there. A pointless conversation with the Yolanda character halfway in the book, and then she talks with a Levi's brother's child, so Levi's nephew, which is Liam, and he's scared about Levi knowing he's there because no one's supposed to be talking with Charlotte. Great sense of smell, great sense of hearing. The dude's in the house, she's outside chopping wood, and Liam is there. What makes you think, especially with how they ended the book, that any of this makes any sense? So it gets very aggravating. It was like, especially, I think the biggest aggravation is knowing that it was done better originally. Knowing that this stuff that's been tacked onto it wasn't there. It was put in so she could split the first book into 2 parts. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're trying to make, because you had it out for free originally. Now you kind of want to make money off of it. But if it's an amazing book, people will still buy it. And here I bought the Bite thinking, okay, I'm going to get the book. I'll be able to read part 1. And then it only turns out to be the first half. And then it's got like a ton of filler in it. Probably not the majority of it, but it's like every time they mention the smartphone, there are an absolute crap ton of kitchen conversations. I felt like I was watching Breaking Bad with the pointless eating scenes. It was like, those are there just to add runtime to it. And I saw the exact same thing while reading this. There were so many things tacked on, which just added to its runtime. And here I am I was like, I just want to get through it at this point, because there are parts which stand out, which immediately jump out to you, which, you want to keep reading, get you to want to keep reading, get you to want to keep reading. But when you get to like the Liam parts, when you get to the Yolanda parts, when you get to her calling her ex, and even going back to visit, okay, like going back to see him, I think I would accept if she didn't call him, if she didn't, constantly think and rely on him, like going back to basically cut ties after not being with him and finally literally having the strength to stand up for herself, I think would have made more sense. It's like, if you want her to return back to him to kind of prove that she's better than him, not better, but prove that she no longer needs him, prove that she's able to stand on her own 2 feet, great. But when you have her being just a few chapters previously, literally in book, it's like 2 weeks prior, she's calling him because she was missing him. I don't know. She called him to tell him, oh, don't find me. And a lot of the things she's saying is just like, you're giving him all the ammunition he needs. You're letting him know. And, oh, gosh. So when she goes to visit him, and this is one thing I absolutely do not like. This is one of the things that absolutely aggravated. And even though I was like, I'm okay with the part of her going to visit him, this is one thing I will never accept. So, because remember, he's an abusive man who beat her. And if he can't have her, he's going to do the exact same thing to another woman. That's what those people do. If they can't abuse one person, if they finally get away, they go to the next one. That's how they operate. So she has the power to get him put in jail, to get his family put in jail, because they're all criminals. She has blackmail material. And what does she do? Oh, I have all this material. It's going to ruin your life, but I'm not going to do anything with it because you're going to leave me alone. I don't care about the other women you batter and abuse. Go ahead. You're just going to leave me alone. And it was so aggravating. That part was so aggravating. You see how I have to read certain things. That's how I have to read the characters at the certain points in time, because it was like, you're feeling you don't care about anyone else who's in your situation. You're only focusing on yourself. And it defeats the character. She was a strong character in the beginning, but every now and then, it's like halfway through when she calls him, she becomes this weak, pathetic, ruined character for me. And now she's completely become the snobby character that she claimed to not like. she had this backwards arc in the way I was reading it. She had a backwards arc because at the very end, she doesn't care about anyone else. She just cares about him staying off of her and not bothering her, because it was all about her and not the fact that he's going to repeatedly do this to other people. Of course, that wasn't probably in the thought process when writing it. That scene was definitely just tacked on. But when you tack on things like that, it changes the character's dynamic. When you tack on that she escaped this abusal stuff, you get the image of a strong woman. You get the image of a strong character who's willing to throw everything away just to protect themselves, to create a new life for themselves. They're willing to risk it all. That's strong. That was powerful. And then you break the entire character by having her call the one thing that had her, that was destroying her, that led to her running away. You had her call him. And then on top of that, you have her blackmail him. And instead of getting him put in prison where he belongs, instead of preventing him from doing this to any other women, you just say, oh, just don't bother with me. Because she doesn't care about anyone else. She just like, don't bother with me. Don't bother with me. I know that's not how it's supposed to be meant, but it bothers me that it's like, that's the character arc I saw. She went from strong to pathetic to being arrogant. It just didn't feel right. Maybe arrogant, pathetic, then strong makes a better character arc, or pathetic, arrogant, then strong. Or there are various ways you could go about it, but the way it went, I didn't like her at the end, because in my mind I was like, just leak this information, get him in prison. Have him lose his status. If he loses all his finance, even if he doesn't go to prison, if he loses his money and loses his status, then apparently he won't be able to pay off cops and PIs and lawyers to do whatever he wants, because this is all going to stab her in the back. But then again, people who are arrogant and try to do things like that always seems to come back to haunt them. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe that's what the author's going for. But other than that, this world seems great. It's just the things that are tacked on, like it's either put in the shifter's clothes or leave and take out the random clothes assortments left around, because it just seems like it's overdone. Or just keep remove the shifter's clothes and just have them be freaking nude. And then it's funny, now that I'm thinking the shifter's clothes, I just think of those like little chihuahuas that have like pants on when the owners put pants on them, and how you feel sorry for those dogs. I always do, because it's just like, that looks uncomfortable. That looks uncomfortable. They don't want that, because if you hair going the wrong direction is always a pain. It's always a pain. But yeah, I've idled for too long, but I enjoyed this book. Yes, there were a multitude of things I didn't like. And the sad part is, those things were all added on. Those things weren't a part of the original story. I'm going to try to get my hands on the original story and read it. So by the time I get to the part 2 of part 1, I'll be able to say, oh yeah, this right here was not in the original. This thing right here, because right here it's just like I read it and I was being told that this wasn't here, this wasn't here, this wasn't here, this wasn't here. So I'm relaying that all the things that I have issues with weren't in the original text. Were not in the original text. It was all added on as filler so it could be split into 2 parts. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at. Thank y'all for watching. Talk to you next time. Doodles. One more thing though. I would recommend, if you can find it, find the original text. I'm going to get to it. Hopefully I'll be highly recommending the original text by the time I read The Hunt, which comes out in March. But yeah, I would recommend the original text, because if I had issues with this stuff, the only reason I kept reading, I'll be honest, is because I know the original text wasn't like this. So that's the only reason I kept reading. Otherwise, I would have stopped it and never touched the book again, because they're just parts that just don't resonate with me as a reader for a great character. But the way it was done originally, yes, Charlotte is a great character. She was written well. She's weak in the beginning and grows in strength. She just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. Talk to you next time. Doodles.